In the heart of a bustling African city, nestled between towering skyscrapers and vibrant markets, there was a small but thriving company called Zawadi Enterprises. Zawadi Enterprises was a beacon of innovation and camaraderie in the midst of the city's relentless pace. The employees were more than just colleagues, they were a family. Their bond was forged not only through their shared goals and deadlines, but also through their shared love for food. And every Friday, this love was celebrated in the form of a potluck lunch, a tradition as old as the company itself. The potluck was more than just a meal, it was an event. The break room, usually a quiet space for coffee breaks and quick lunches, transformed into a feast for the senses. Long tables were draped with colorful fabrics, and the air was filled with the tantalizing aromas of African cuisine. There was jollof rice, its vibrant red grains perfectly spiced, and often the subject of friendly debate over whose recipe was the best. Sukuma wiki, a hearty kale dish, sat beside fluffy injera, the spongy Ethiopian flatbread that was perfect for scooping up rich, spicy stews. Plates of fried plantains, smoky grilled meats, and steaming bowls of peanut soup completed the spread. Each dish told a story, a piece of someone's history, and the table became a mosaic of cultures and memories. But one fateful Friday, everything changed. The day had started like any other. Emails pinged, keyboards clattered, and the usual hum of productivity filled the air. The promise of the weekly potluck lunch lingered in the background, a bright spot in the otherwise routine workday. The employees were eager, as always, to gather around the communal table, to share not just food, but stories, laughter, and the warmth of their shared bond. But this Friday would be different. This Friday would mark the beginning of something none of them could have anticipated. Kemba, the new employee who had joined the team just a week earlier, stood quietly at the edge of the break room. She was a woman of few words, her presence both intriguing and unsettling. Her dark eyes seemed to take in everything, observing her colleagues with a curious intensity that made some of them shift uncomfortably under her gaze. She moved through the office like a shadow, polite but distant, her smiles never quite reaching her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was soft, almost a whisper, as though she were afraid of being heard. Yet there was something about her that drew people in, a mystery that made them curious, even if they couldn't explain why. When the potluck announcement was made that morning, Kemba hesitated. She stood at the edge of the break room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, as her colleagues excitedly discussed what they would bring. "I don't cook much," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the chatter. Her words were met with a chorus of encouragement. "Oh, don't worry about it," said Kofi, the ever-enthusiastic accountant. "Just bring something small. It's about the spirit of sharing." Fatima, the receptionist, chimed in. "Even if it's just a packet of biscuits, we'd love to have you contribute." Kemba nodded reluctantly, her expression unreadable. As the clock ticked closer to lunchtime, the office buzzed with anticipation. The long table in the break room was soon laden with dishes, jollof rice, sukuma wiki, spicy stews, and more. The air was thick with the rich, comforting aromas of home-cooked meals. Kemba arrived last, carrying a small, intricately woven basket covered with a cloth. She placed it at the end of the table without a word, her movements deliberate and almost ceremonial. The dish inside was unlike anything the others had seen before, a deep purple paste, smooth and velvety, with a scent that was both earthy and sweet, yet tinged with something unfamiliar. At first, the meal was delightful. Laughter filled the room, and the team bonded over their shared love of food. But as the hours passed, strange things began to happen. One by one, the employees started experiencing vivid, unsettling visions. By Monday, the office was in chaos. The once lively and energetic workspace now felt like a shadow of its former self. Desks were cluttered with half-finished tasks, coffee cups sat cold and forgotten, and the usual hum of productivity had been replaced by an eerie silence punctuated by hushed whispers. No one could focus. The employees moved through their tasks like ghosts, their eyes hollow and their minds elsewhere. The vivid, unsettling dreams that had begun after the potluck had not stopped. If anything, they had grown darker, more intense, and more invasive. Kofi, the usually cheerful accountant, sat at his desk with his head in his hands, his tie loosened and his shirt wrinkled. He hadn't slept in days, haunted by visions of a forest where the trees whispered secrets he couldn't understand. Fatima, the receptionist, jumped at every sound, her once bright eyes now darting nervously around the room. She had dreamt of her ancestors standing in a circle, chanting words that sent chills down her spine. Even Tunda, the ever-reliable office manager, was a mess. He had woken up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, convinced he had been buried alive. The dreams were relentless, each one more vivid and terrifying than the last, leaving the team exhausted, paranoid, and on edge. Kemba, however, seemed unaffected. While her colleagues stumbled through the day like zombies, she moved with the same quiet, deliberate grace as always. She sat at her desk, her expression calm and unreadable, her dark eyes watching everything with that same curious intensity. She didn't seem tired. She didn't seem afraid. If anything, there was a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing at the corners of her lips, as though she knew something the others didn't. As the days passed and the dreams grew worse, the team began to notice Kemba's eerie composure. Whispers spread like wildfire. Why isn't she affected? What does she know? Did she do this to us? The tension in the office was palpable, a thick fog of suspicion and fear that no one could escape. Finally, unable to take it any longer, a small group of employees confronted her. They gathered around her desk, their faces drawn and their voices trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. "Kemba," Kofi began, his voice uncharacteristically sharp. "What's going on? Why are you the only one who seems normal? Do you know something about this? About the dreams?" Kemba looked up slowly, her gaze steady and unnerving. For a moment she said nothing, her silence stretching out like a taut wire. Then she smiled, a small, enigmatic smile that sent a shiver down their spines. "The potluck is a sacred tradition," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "But not all traditions are meant to be shared." Her words hung in the air, heavy and cryptic, leaving more questions than answers. Before anyone could press her further, she stood, gathered her things and walked out of the office, leaving her colleagues staring after her in stunned silence. Her departure only deepened the mystery, and the team was left to grapple with the unsettling truth. Something had been set in motion that Friday, something they couldn't understand, and Kemba was at the center of it all. Desperate for answers, the team turned to Mama Nia, an elderly woman who ran a small, unassuming shop tucked away in a quiet corner near the office. The shop was a treasure trove of traditional herbs, roots, and remedies, its shelves lined with jars of dried leaves, bundles of bark, and bottles of mysterious liquids that shimmered in the dim light. Mama Nia was a figure of reverence in the community, known for her deep knowledge of ancient rituals and her ability to unravel even the most perplexing of spiritual troubles. When the team arrived, frazzled and desperate, Mama Nia listened carefully as they recounted their ordeal. Her expression grew increasingly grave as they described Kemba's dish, the strange purple paste, its intoxicating yet bitter taste, and the vivid, haunting dreams that had followed. When they finished, Mama Nia leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing as she processed their story. After a long silence, she spoke. "You have been cursed," she said, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. That was no ordinary meal. It was ugali wa roho, a dish made with forbidden ingredients meant to bind the spirits of the living to the dead. Kemba is not who she seems. The team exchanged uneasy glances, their worst fears confirmed. Mama Nia rose from her chair and moved slowly through the shop, gathering ingredients with practiced hands. She returned with a small pouch filled with dried roots and a vial of dark liquid. "This is a remedy," she explained, handing them the pouch. "Brew it into a tea. It is made from the roots of the Mtiiwa Amani tree, known for its power to break spiritual bonds. Drink it together, and it will help weaken the curse." That evening, the team gathered in the office, their nerves taut but their resolve firm. The bitter tea, brewed from Mama Nia's remedy, sat steaming in a large pot at the center of the table. They drank it together, wincing at its sharp, earthy taste, but feeling a faint sense of relief as its warmth spread through them. When Kemba arrived, they were ready. They confronted her, their voices trembling with a mix of fear and anger. "Kemba," Kofi began, "we know about the curse. We know about ugali wa roho. We need to understand why you did this." For a moment, Kemba stood frozen, her calm facade wavering. Then, to everyone's surprise, her shoulders slumped, and she began to weep. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed, her voice breaking with emotion. "I didn't mean to harm anyone," she said, her words barely audible. "I was trying to protect myself. My family has been cursed for generations. The only way to break it is to pass it on to others. I thought if I shared it with all of you, the curse would weaken. I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be free." The team was torn. Anger simmered beneath the surface, but it was tempered by pity. They could see the pain in Kemba's eyes, the weight of a burden she had carried for far too long. With Mama Nia's guidance, they performed a ritual to cleanse the office and themselves. They burned sage, chanted prayers, and poured offerings of water and honey to appease the spirits. The air seemed to shift, growing lighter, as though the curse had been lifted. Kemba, remorseful and humbled, made a vow. "I will seek redemption," she promised. "I will find a way to break this curse without harming anyone else." She left the company that night, her departure marked by a mix of relief and sorrow. The potluck tradition, once a cherished ritual, was abandoned. In its place, a simple rule was established: no more shared meals at work. The team had learned a hard lesson, that not all traditions are meant to be shared, and that some secrets are best left buried. From that day on, the employees of Zawadi Enterprises approached their customs with caution. They became more mindful of the stories behind the rituals they upheld, understanding that even the most innocent-seeming traditions could carry hidden dangers. And as for Kemba's dish, it became a cautionary tale, a story whispered in hushed tones whenever the topic of potlucks arose. It served as a stark reminder that sometimes the most dangerous things come in the most enticing packages, and that the line between tradition and peril can be thinner than anyone realizes. As our story concludes, it leaves us with some unsettling thoughts. With the company banning potlucks, did they truly solve the problem or just avoid it? Did they let Kemba off the hook too easily, or was she just a pawn in something larger? And beyond that, how well do we really know the people we work with? When a colleague brings in food, do we ever stop to wonder where it really comes from, or what might be in it? If you were in their position, would you feel safe, or would you still be looking over your shoulder? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's discuss how this story resonated with you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more intriguing stories. Thank you for watching.